But you'll see the comment on the screen right now. I came for Bill. That is not about Billy Ray. That is about our first guest, Bill Roth. And so I'm going to add him to the stage here and get rid of this comment so we can talk to him. Bill, how are you tonight?
Guys, it is an honor to be with you. It's a beautiful night here in Florida. I kind of wish the Hokies were playing in this game and we were all in Houston for it, but maybe a few years from now. But you all look great, so thanks for having me.
Oh, the honor is all ours, Bill. Thank you so much for being here. You are the voice of the Hokies, and there are so many accolades. I mean, for the better part of 35 years is really how far it goes back. I think I saw you started in 1988. So you're a member of the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. You helped create the Sports Media and Analytics program as a professor of practice. And I got to stop because I'll just keep on with the accolades all night. So let's pick your brain a little bit here. And right. I think I'm going to hand it over to my partner on Too Deep, Rob, for the first question. And then we're going to get into some of your calls over the years and all kinds of fun stuff. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so I think our first question, we're sitting here watching what hopefully will be a fantastic game. And you have called a lot of fantastic games and bowl games at that. Liberty Bowls, Idaho Potato Bowls, Gasparillo, Duke's Mayo, just some of them that we could come up with right now, but so many more. And I think you were even busy on New Year's Day calling a game down in Tampa. What do you think is more fun, or what do you enjoy more? Is it being parachuted into a bowl game where you have to learn about the teams, the background, the players, or do you kind of like being in the natural element of a Hokies game? And in addition to that, what's the difference in the process when you're going to prepare for the Hokies and opposing team, as opposed to going into two teams you might not be as familiar with?
Well, I love calling a Tech football bowl game. In fact, this year, the Military Bowl, despite the nasty weather, was a lot of fun. And my greatest memories are bowl weeks with our teams. And someday we'll be able to tell some of the stories about what happened in New Orleans and Miami at some of these bowl games. So I enjoy that. The national games are fun too. So I had a chance to really learn about new players and new coaches. And so, yeah, the LSU Wisconsin game was a really good game. And, the Hokies didn't play Georgia Tech this year, but I got to work their game. So I got to see their team in action. So both are valuable, but the fun is a Hokies bowl game for sure.
We just had a long touchdown by Michigan down the sideline by Edwards. That was awesome. So we got points. They're kicking the extra point as I'm watching right now. About to go up 7-0 as long as I didn't jinx them. It is 7-0 Wolverines. But I like that answer, Bill. I want to talk about some of your great calls over the years. You have so many, some that everyone knows. And if you don't mind, and let me indulge myself here by reciting a couple to you. Jim Druckenmiller has engineered the greatest comeback I've ever seen. Michael Vick makes a miracle happen in Morgantown. D'Angelo Hall took it right out of his hands. He said, "Give it to me, Roscoe, give it to me." And of course, it's a miracle in Blacksburg. Tyrod did it, Mikey. Tyrod did it. When you think back on all those calls that you've made, including the one this year where Tootin runs the kickback against UVA, and it's a Hokie takeover on the hill in Charlottesville, party on Hokies, touchdown Tootin. Do you have a favorite, or maybe if you don't have a favorite call over the years, maybe talk about one that you're particularly proud of or how it came to be?
This year, when the Hokies took the hill in Charlottesville, I came this close to adding to that, but I thought I'd get in trouble. I was going to talk about how, like Stonewall Jackson took Manassas, and Robert E. Lee, right? The whole thing, like Robert E. Lee took Manassas and Stonewall Jackson took Front Royal. The Hokies have taken Charlottesville, but I think that might have insulted some folks. The D'Angelo strip of Parrish was great. The Tyrod Taylor completion to Roberts, that was such a good team that we had that year. And if you go back and look at it, Nebraska played so well, and Dominican Sue has a fist of Taylor's jersey, just he's about to let it go. And Tyrell, who, by the way, just celebrated a birthday this week, made a great catch. So it's hard for me. The Druckenmiller to Holmes play was remarkable too. I wish we would have held on against Florida State because we had some good ones that night in New Orleans, but we don't get to hear those, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to an interview with Ian Eagle, the great play-by-play guy. He does March Madness, he does football. In fact, he was calling the Eagles-Giants game this past weekend. But in that interview, he was talking about being a young play-by-play guy and feeling like concerned about what people might think about a call, if it's too cute or it's too corny. And as he got older, he started to go with his gut more. Is that a tough balance, like playing that line between playing it straight and informing, like with your calls? How do you balance that?
Well, when we're doing a Hokies game, I know our audience, right? I know you guys. Like, I'm one of you all, and I know who's listening, and so it's very easy for me to understand how people are feeling during a game because I'm feeling like you're feeling. I think when you do, or when Ian or anyone's doing a national game, it's a much more delicate thing because you don't want to insult a fan base of a team, and everyone, like Hokie fans, like I hear all the time, man, the national people don't know what they're doing. Well, they do. They just don't know our team as well as we know our team, and so that's the challenge. You don't want to insult a fan base or a coach, and if you get cute, you can easily do that. I think that Joe Buck's amazing, and he's satirical. He can bring sarcasm into a broadcast, into a telecast, and a lot of people don't like that. I think everyone would agree. Even the people that don't like him will admit he's a great play caller, but sometimes they feel like he doesn't like their team. That's not the case at all. He doesn't like or dislike anybody in that league, but sometimes there's some criticism of that, which is incredibly unfair because I think he's one of the best play-by-play guys of our generation.
And he completely owns. I mean, when I think of Joe Buck, it's easy to forget how awesome he is at baseball. Like, he owned Octobers and owned fall baseball for me. And it's a shame he's not doing it anymore because he's really, really damn good at that too.
Yeah, I agree.
You answered that question. So I was thinking, like, why do people dislike Joe Buck? I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan in the world, but I never really got the hate. But I think you worded it correctly. There's a certain, his style could be a little bit polarizing, I guess, at times. And you would never say that about Bill Roth, though. I feel like I don't think your style is polarizing. I think over the years you've become so beloved. Is it weird now feeling like, man, I feel like I could say anything and these people are just going to love it? Or do you still, are you like pining and thinking so hard about what you're going to say and forming the calls the night before?
No, but I don't think that UVA fans would agree with you, Pete, on your take about.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
Would you, like, I want to get back to that real quick though. Will you think of things like ahead of time, or did you used to maybe like, oh, if this happens, I'm going to use his name in this pun or something like that?
The one I do remember was Michael Brunswick Stewie. We had a big, the Hokie Club down in Southside every year brings several big vats of Brunswick stew, and we make it outside of Castle Coliseum. And we were out there with a big ladle throwing butter in, and John Clary and his group. So they're out there, all those great, amazing Hokies. And someone said, it's Brunswick Stewie. And I said, I will use that on the air if Michael Stewie scores a touchdown. And sure enough, he did. And I said, so that one was planned. I said, there's nothing better on a chilly Saturday than a bowl of some Brunswick Stewie.
Would you say that most of your calls, though, in games are, even the great ones, some of the ones I just talked about, would you say that those come like right off the cuff or off the top of your head? Are they spontaneous?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're quick with it, man. That's great. Do certain calls that you've had in the past haunt you? Like, oh man, I wish I had said this in that moment. Oh, if only I had thought of this sooner, like the Costanza, like that's what I should have said.
I bit my tongue out. It's funny, you guys were mentioning the Danny Cole catch earlier. And man, I thought I had a great call on that catch. I thought that night, that night at the Superdome, when Tech played Michigan, in so many ways that was the zenith of the Beamer era. You know, we got a BCS bid as an at-large team.
Mm-hmm.
We got a BCS bid to play Michigan in the Sugar Bowl without winning the ACC. And earlier in that week, I was talking with Weaver, and I had been on Feinbaum's show, and they talked about, you know, should Virginia Tech be in the SEC? And one of the things we talked about was at the time, SEC and ACC payouts were just about even. And of course, Tech had spent so much political cash, so to speak, to get into the ACC. And it was like, we don't need to be in the SEC to make a bowl game like this. We don't even need to win the ACC to get to the Sugar Bowl. Our program is at the point where we can finish second in our conference and still go to the Sugar Bowl. And I just thought that game was so important. And I had in my mind Danny making that catch, the Hokies sacking Shoelace Robinson, and Coach Beamer getting carried off the field. And so I had some things in mind for that. And guys, it never happened. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't plan them in advance.
Yeah.
Because I had in my mind what I might have said had Tech held on and beaten Michigan that night.
That game hurt. And I went to the game down in New Orleans. I had been to the previous Sugar Bowl in 2004. I was a little too young to be at the 1999 one. But you're right, Bill. That game at that time, we were a surprise to be selected for that Sugar Bowl game. And we got in based on our brand and basically our fans' performance in New Orleans, bringing tons of fans. They knew that Tech would come to the game, and we did. And it was great up until the way it ended. And that was, Tech has never won 12 games in a season. And I thought for sure, like that was the year we were going to get 12 games. We may have to wait a couple more years, but yes, that's certainly, Pat was talking about it earlier, that game. And I think we all kind of have a spot in our hearts that we still don't like Michigan because of that game. Am I right, Pat?
100% right. 100% right. If you don't mind, Pete, I want to jump in here because,
Sure.
you know, we're talking about a sour game, but it is 2024. We do have a game in Nashville coming up Labor Day weekend. And I was doing some research this morning on a certain bowl game back in 1998 at the Music City Bowl, the inaugural Music City Bowl. And that game ended a little bit differently. So, Bill, I would love to hear any stories or kind of just any relics from that 1998 thrubbing, is that a word? Of
thrashing
of Alabama in Nashville.
That was a great Hokies win because Tech had never beaten Alabama in football, and until that night. The day or two before the game, there was a banquet in Nashville, and Corey Moore was seated at our table. It was Mike Burnup and I, and some people from the greater Nashville Chamber of Commerce, those people, the gentlemen that are on the bowl committee, and Alabama's punter. And someone had come up at the table. One of the businessmen said to the Alabama punter, some random gentleman from Nashville, he says, you know, Virginia Tech's good at blocking punts. And the Alabama punter says, I haven't had a punt blocked in my career. We don't have punts blocked in Alabama. And Corey Moore didn't miss a beat. So we're going to block two. And he did. I think that night, the way Engelberger and Moore and that, you know, the 98, that was Al Clark's last game. He was the Hokies quarterback that night. But I thought that that game kind of like spurred us into 99. The 98 team didn't win as many games probably as those guys would have liked to, but you could see we were going to be really good, especially with the new quarterback coming in Vic. But yeah, I remember leaving Nashville going, we're gonna win a lot of football games because we've got a really nice team. And I feel that way now too, by the way.
You mentioned leaving Nashville, and I had a funny interaction with my pops. We were walking in Annapolis. My brother had gone to Navy, and it was his first time being able to kind of be able to do whatever he wants to do in Annapolis. And we're out. And my pops, he's surrounded by people from Tulane. He's from New Orleans. He's like, oh, we should come to this bowl game every year. I hope Tech goes to the Military Bowl every year. And I said, okay, I'm having a great time. I would not like to be in the Military Bowl every year. But I want to ask you, from all the bowl games that you have been to, regardless of their cachet or wherever, where are some of your favorite bowl trips, and what are some of them that may be underrated?
Wow. Well, I'm going to sound like Coach Beamer here. There's never a bad bowl game leading up to it, especially if you've been around a team and guys, it's their last week together. And for seniors, it's such an amazing experience. So from the players' perspective, they're all fun. I love the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl. Those would probably be my top two favorites. I love Miami. I love South Florida as a place. New Orleans, I think, is great. I last year, 2 years ago now, I did the Wisconsin Arizona State game in Las Vegas, and I think that city, that stadium, would, if we can ever get to it, it's part of the ACC bowl mix now. But I don't know how the bowls are going to go moving forward because there's only like 4 leagues left, right? I think everyone would have a great time if we would go to the Las Vegas Bowl. I think it would be amazing to spend a week out there. And you don't need a car. It's like New Orleans. You can just walk to and from the stadium. You know, Nashville's like that. Charlotte's like that. Now Vegas is like that. You just fly in, the airport, the stadium, the hotels. You know, for you fellas, the bars, the casinos, they're all walking distance. And so I like that bowl game a lot.
That's an interesting take. Do you remember when, I think it was when the Alliance was happening or something, they were talking about playing a game in Las Vegas between the ACC and the Pac-12 or something like that. And I was like, that sounds incredible, but making it a bowl game would be better since that league no longer exists. And speaking of out West, you spent a little time out West, but when you came back to Virginia Tech, you helped create the sports media and analytics program. And if we could just move to that quickly before we have to say goodbye, it's not just a broadcast journalism school. As far as I know, there's also like a play-by-play specialty. So when you returned, what inspired you to get that program going? Was there just, you felt something inside, like there's more that I can give? Like, tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, Dr. Bob Denton, who had held a tremendous positions throughout the university, was running the COM program at Tech, which is now the School of Communication. And we had talked about it. We had talked about it back when we started doing internships. And now, Pete, by the way, thanks for bringing it up. This semester, when we come start classes again next week, we have 331 students in our SMA program. Wow. And that's a lot of future journalists and storytellers. And you're right, we have people that want to do podcasts like what you guys do. We have young men and women that want to work on camera and off camera. You know, we've done great. Evan Hughes won the Jim Nantz Award, which is essentially the Heisman Trophy of broadcasting. He brought that to Virginia Tech. Last year, we had 2 of our undergraduates finish in the top 10. Giovanni Heater is a kid, Kyle Marshak. They're both from New York. Either one of those kids could win that Jim Nantz Award again. It's essentially the Heisman. And there's not a week that goes by that we don't hear from a high school student or a mom or dad saying, hey, we want to take a tour of Virginia Tech. And we're getting young men and women from all over the country. Literally, we have kids in our program from Newport Beach, California, from Seattle, from South Florida, from Boston, New York, all over. And it's exciting to see kids from all over the country that want to be in our SMA program. And Tech Athletics has been amazing. They've provided space for them to broadcast games. And that has been a similar theme throughout the league, right? Everywhere we go on the road, everybody credentials the Virginia Tech kids. And they know who they are because they're running around in coat and tie, right? It looks like they got lost on their way to a bar mitzvah.
The NBC Page program, yes.
Exactly. And but they do a great job with it, and I'm so proud of the work. They stayed over break. You know, they were at Wake Forest the other day for the men's game. They went down and covered that. They were at the NC State game yesterday at Castle with the ladies. So their dedication is awesome.
And I just want to double down on that. Like, we've had the opportunity to work with men and women from that department, and they come out. It's not only that they come out like polished and know what to do, but they're all so eager for opportunity and so eager to try new things, that none of those folks come out and they're like, okay, like give me something to do and I'll do it. It's, hey, have we thought about doing this? How about if I start this own thing? Or how about if I, this is an area I think you could do better. So I can't say enough positive things about that program and the work that you're all doing. It's been very, very fun to watch.
And we've
fun
seen
to be around them.
So many names and young, I'm calling them kids, but graduates come out and get these jobs with the Squirrels or with Virginia Tech or with whoever. And it just seems like so many of them are doing really well. And you're trying to get that program. Like you went to Syracuse, the famous communications school, and you're trying to rival them. I guess this is kind of what, am I right in that this was kind of a program that you're not so much that you brought it from there, but that it's the same idea of what goes on up there?
Yeah, and they were helpful. The dean at Syracuse, I knew, and some of the people that run it, I knew, and the people who are there now, I know. And we talk an awful lot about things. We're not really in competition with like recruiting kids. There's my Coach Beamer thing. You get that? Did y'all catch that? We're not in. I've lost my train of thought here. A couple years ago, 7-8 years ago, I sat down with Whit and Brad Worthman, and we talked about the ACC network. Blacksburg, because of where we are, we're not like Pitt or BC where you've got all these freelance broadcasters and behind the scenes people that can help put together a show. And so a lot of our students are working in Hokie Vision. When you watch a Virginia Tech broadcast on ACC network, whether it's the producer, the director, or video or audio or camera operators or graphics or whatever it happens to be, those are Hokie students that are in our SMA program. And the 3304 sports platform allows our kids to get on the air. And if they're good enough, then they can move up to ACC network. And Whit and Brad Worthman agreed that this would be something really good, interactive between athletics and communication. And I enjoy watching it. I have so much pride. Kevin DiDomenico's graduated 2 years ago, and he's a AAA broadcaster in Reno, Nevada. That just doesn't happen. And I'll tell you something else is really interesting. I mentioned Kyle Marshak. UVA called last spring, and they said, do you have anybody that can call some lacrosse? Because their women's lacrosse team was ranked either number 1 or number 2, and the men, I think, were 4th or 5th. And Kyle got a call, Kyle Marshak, to go to Charlottesville and do the play-by-play of 2 UVA lacrosse games. And it didn't bother Carla, their AD. It didn't bother their coach that the play-by-play person doing a UVA lacrosse game was a Virginia Tech student. And
how did he do?
He was great. They brought him back this year to do more games.
Nice.
And so, Whit's been a huge part of it, but so is Carla. So all the AD at Louisville, they had eight of our students at Louisville this year. So, and I need to thank everybody that's helped. Everyone says, "Oh, you're doing a great job," but it's a collective thing around our conference. We're gonna have 10 or 11 kids at the ACC tournament again this year up in DC. So I have a great time doing it. It's a lot of fun, and we're gonna have a lot of Hokie SMA grads calling games on TV. We already are, but you're going to see more and more of them in the coming years.
Yeah, and that is such a cool program, Bill. And I think that was the first time you got them out there. Was like during the COVID 2020 ACC tournament. You took a bunch of kids down, and it was one of the first times like anyone had done that with that many students. And that was it's a shame that the second half of it got canceled because of COVID, but that was the beginning. And the 3304 stuff I love. I check it out on YouTube all the time. See the next kids that are coming up and things like that.
Oh, we have great writers. Jack Brisendine's an incredible writer. I mean, David Cunningham has launched his career over at Tech Sideline, and he's doing an amazing job covering Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball. So I'm excited to see it. It hasn't been announced publicly yet, but for those of you in Richmond, one of our comm graduates is about to get a major role in a television station in Richmond. I'm so excited, and I'm going to let her announce it, or let the station announce it. But when they succeed, I just feel so excited for them because, you know, it's like similar to a coach being proud of his or her team. And
well, that's why you got the mannerisms. You are a coach in a way. But Bill, we thank you so much for taking this time out of your night, that beautiful night I can see down there in Florida, and talking to some independent media, as it were. We do really appreciate you doing this for us.
Guys, thanks for all you do. Keep flying that Hokie flag wherever you are, and I appreciate it. And I want everyone to know that 4 years ago, Sons made a donation to SMA, and I'll never forget that. So when you asked me to come on tonight, that's one of the first things I thought about, is that you guys made a donation to our SMA Foundation. You know, camera lights are expensive, so
I love it.
I love it. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Stay one more second. I got to take a picture of your background to make it my virtual background for my sales calls.
Yeah, he's living large, man, enjoying the off season. We will see you and hear from you again soon, I'm sure, Bill. Have a great night.
Love it. Thanks, Pete. See you guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Pat. Wow,
that was awesome.
What a guy.
What a legend to just hang out with some lowly dudes like us. That was sweet.